aplausos, por favor. I am Tony Diaz, el libro traficante, and I am talking loud and proud because aquí estoy in the safe confines of California. We're seeking political asylum from Texas. And we are going to make sure that we unite from now on. We're looking at what the intellectuals are doing here. We are at the PICO Youth and Family Center, which is beautiful. We're going to find out about this beautiful facility. Fragrant, you are flaunting the banned books. No, hombre. We got the banned books, and back we have some of the original creators of the banned book curriculum, aquí UNIDOS, and we're building curriculum. So we want to give a shout out to Sacramento State University. They're helping fund this caravan as we go all the way from here all the way up to Sacramento. We'll be visiting different schools, and today we're going to interview some of your community leaders. We're going to have some of your poets. But this is just an introduction, okay? We want to make sure that as time goes on, you bring in some of your performers, some of your poets. And I tell you what, I know you got a studio here. If in 1 year it ain't raining some of your poets and writers, we're going to be deeply offended, okay? So you'll be coming back with some of those folks? I love it. I love it. And right now, I'd like to interview Sean Arce, who's part of the movimiento that started all of this. Por favor. And I remind folks, we are broadcasting, of course, on social media. This is starting on the Libro Traficante Facebook page. Also, Nuestra Palabra, Latino writers having their say. The video will also air on fox26houston.com. People get scared when I say the word Fox. Like, oh. But I actually I'm on a political talk show in Houston called What's Your Point, where I get to argue with right-wingers. Okay, so now here in a blue state, you guys have heard about like the Tea Party, no? Feel free to boo, Breitbart. On this show, I'm with those folks, okay? But the great thing is I get to give them complexes, okay? So I get to responder, and then Fox 26 Houston airs our video. This is also going to become our audio broadcast on 90.1 FM KPFT and a podcast as well. And we've got teachers that will use this in their classroom. So a little later today, when Matt flows, it's going to be in a classroom in Houston, Texas. Okay, so that's what this is all about, ¿verdad? So aplausos a ustedes, por favor. Sean, it is really wonderful to get to see you again,
Igualmente, brother. Igualmente.
And I want to say one thing. We learn to be brave because of the people of Tucson, because of the students of Tucson, in the belly of the beast, when they were being attacked at all levels, they had the courage to stand up, to fight. High-Tech Aztec Brian Paras heard their call on social media that time, and that's how we got involved. And when we came and saw the curriculum you had, the unity you had, but also the level of attacks going on, we said, how dare we just sit by? And we said we had to get involved. So first of all, Sean, thank you for all that work. Tell us a little bit about how beautiful this curriculum was that you were teaching for so many years there for our gente.
Yeah, definitely. Ethnic studies is from the community, it's from the community demands. So as machistas at the University of Arizona in the early 90s, we said, why do we have to wait until we get to the college level? The majority of our gente don't even get to college or don't even get some, high school, much less. And so we demanded of the school district to implement a K through 12 Chicano studies program. With that, we started with one class in the morning. I was the first teacher. It was like 0 period in the library, and it evolved to like 126 courses across the district.
Wow.
And so, make a long story short, right? I want to be brief. It was a very highly successful curriculum, right? Highly successful program. We transformed the schools. We weren't about reforming. We're about dismantling, right? Mm-hmm. Dismantling those very systems of oppression that have haunted our raza, since the inception American education, right? And so with that, the students were very active. The immigration movement was taking, the pro-immigrant movement in Tucson was taking place. Students were highly active. Dolores Huerta came in 2006, right, during the big protests, right? The Gran Marcha here in LA and all throughout the big cities throughout Aztlán. And Dolores Huerta came during that time and stated that Republicans hate Latinos. And so then the state of Arizona began to attack us. And then they eventually passed a law. And while doing so, they came across with a number of audits, right? And the audits showed that we not only closed the achievement gap between Chicanx and white students, we actually inversed that achievement gap. Wow. And so that's unprecedented, right? Wow. And the state of Arizona withheld their audits, right? They withheld their audits for months because they didn't want to reveal the outcome of the audit, which showed those numbers, right? The closing of the academic achievement gap between poor raza, working class raza, so it's unprecedented. So we're very, very proud of that. But they did it, right? Because as teachers, we're merely facilitating these processes of decolonization, of developing conciencia, of learning how to love ourselves. This concept, this calipoca, where we look into that smoking mirror. And when the students got that, they taught us, they taught us what it means to be human. They taught us what it means to be indigenous. They taught us what it means to be Chicano, Chicana, Chicanx, right? And so with that, we challenged the state of Arizona, passed a law, anti-ethnic studies law, and we challenged it, right? We went all the way to the Ninth Circuit. So it's a precedent-setting case, not only for Chicano studies. First time Chicano studies was in the Court of Appeals. Wow. Right? Not only that, but our law was used to block Trump's attempted elimination of DACA. So at the Ninth Circuit, they blocked it. They cited Arce versus Arizona. And, circuit courts back east, they cited Arce versus Arizona. And the U.S. Supreme Court, December 2020, they cited Arce of Arizona because you cannot enact and enforce a law with racial animus, specifically in our case, against raza, right? Wow. Against Chicano. Wow. So that struggle, our legal and political struggle, we couldn't do it. The PYFC was integral to this. The brothers and sisters from Santa Monica, we call Maria the Queen of Aztlán, right? The organizer, hold it all together. And she had 50 people in her apartment, for months on straight, staying and organizing and raising money for the legal fund. So, there's no way I could pay back that type of that debt, right? So Oscar de la Torre is in here, Tomas Carrasco, Ron Espiritu, local educator, who's involved in the struggle, who himself was involved in coming to Tucson. I was so upset. I was so sad. I was here in California when y'all arrived in Tucson. So I missed you guys. I missed you guys when that was happening. But yeah, that's where we are. And fortunately, that movimiento in Tucson informed and inspired folks to push here in Califas, like Diaz Serna. Diaz Serna started off Raza Studies Now, began, with a revolutionary zeal, like a revolutionary, he is revolutionary zeal in organizing it and pushing Chicano studies in the K-12 schools, selfless acts of love by my brother Elias. So that's where we are. So inspired and informed by the movement taking place there. Now we have mandatory ethnic studies, right? Courses. So we're very, but there's a lot of work. We just begun our work, right? There's a lot of struggle to take place, a lot of work. And we're just very happy to join you all here. It's beautiful, beautiful being in community with all the beautiful gente here tonight. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. Gracias. I'm going to ask you to stay there. You've been demoted to co-host, so and I'm asking to call some of the folks that you mentioned that. But here's why though. So I do talk about in the book. I define community cultural capital. For those who don't know it, you're in it. Okay, you paved the way for it. It's here in the structure. but we're going to call on it again because you mentioned some of those powerful moments, pero estamos sufriendo otra vez right now. Okay. I mentioned in Texas, you've got a right-wing governor separating families, taking them to cities, busing them to other cities further north. You've got administration in Texas that will sooner ban a book than ban an assault rifle. Okay. And Texas is now banning books differently. They will no longer directly ban Mexican-American studies because that united us. That united us and led to this. So the reason I want to talk to some of the folks you mentioned as we organize, because it happens in rooms like this. It happens when it's not glamorous. It doesn't happen at the Supreme Court right away. It builds up to that. And it happens person by person. So whether you're a teacher, whether you're a community organizer, whether you're a family member, this curriculum is for the classroom, the living room, and for the people. So right now, if you kindly bring up some of the folks, we'd love to introduce them to the
Oscar de la Torre, if you wouldn't mind, brother, coming up. Former school board member, founder of the PYFC, current Chicano elected officials in Santa Monica right now. So integral to this movement. And then after, if y'all could be on deck, Tomas Carrasco, Ronnie Spiritu, educators, definitely Elias up front and center. You know, that's he really ignited this, made that conecta. Jokingly calling it, when the eagle and the seagull unite, right? The eagles are coming from, but beautiful metaphor, right? That solidarity. But Oscar de la Torre.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for coming out. Really important. I want to welcome you all to the PICO Youth and Family Center. This is an expression of when we create organizations in our own image. And just like the books, the knowledge, space is also very important, that we occupy space, that we get public resources invested in our community. And we have a recording studio here, film program. Alex is our new executive director. Really proud to work with Alex. Elias Sedna's on the board. Maria Loya runs also, my wife runs programs here at summer camp and doing some really interesting work with young people, teaching them about how to engage in terms of defending their rights, their constitutional rights. And anyway, just want to let you all know this is so important. This work right here is so important. Education is not just for the schools, right? We in the community also have a responsibility and a right to educate ourselves and educate our people and future generations. And there's always going to be resistance to that because there's a lot of fear. The demographics right now are shifting in very dramatic ways where maybe, in the 70s, we couldn't envision what we can see now. When the public education system right now, just in California right now, more than 55% of all the students in K through 12 in public schools are Latino alone, 55%. The same in Texas. Texas is about, 50-some percent. And we know that this demographic shift is scaring people. But no one should be scared, right? We're not blowing up bombs. I mean, we're not blowing up, buildings or none of that stuff, right? We're not, Timothy McVeigh or any of those types of people. We're trying to build this country in a positive way. We're trying to find our place. We're trying to lead in a way that helps, provide more justice, for people really. Like Malcolm X said one day, he said, at some point, they're going to just accuse me of trying to make the system work for everyone. And that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to make the system work for people, especially those people that have been historically marginalized, right? Because that's really the promise of this country, right? To try to find a way to right those wrongs and be on the right side of history. So anyway, this is really important, the work that you all are doing. I want to thank you for continuing that work. And, we've known Sean. I mean, I met Sean when they were fighting in Arizona. We sent a delegation from this organization out there to support. And so it's just so good. I mean, to see Tomas in the back and, walking in earlier, he's like, yeah, man, I'm the chair of the ethnic studies and American cultures. I don't know what they call it. Come up, Tomas, at Santa Barbara City College, so let's have Tomas say some words as well.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to just start off with Elias's metaphor when the eagle meets the seagull, right? And we all need to know that the seagulls are always underestimated, right? Right? It's like, oh, I want to have a seagull. No. My name is Tomas Avila Carrasco. I'm born and raised in Oxford, California. I'm the chair of American Ethnic Studies at Santa Barbara City College. I'm in the community troop, Chicano Secret Service. Thank you all so much for being here. I really think I just want to conceptualize this whole situation to cultural domination, right? That's how you culturally dominate people, by burning and banning their books, right? And so we're talking back to power. And one of the most exciting things to be where I'm at is that I've been able to develop one of the best ethnic studies departments in the nation, right, at a community college. And it's because of these books, man. And it's because of people like us that, you know what, we need to fight back. And it is on and cracking, you know, in regards to it's so crazy because I think it was 2009, it was me, Elias, and Rudy Acuna, right? We were protesting with Sean and them. No one had heard about it yet. Then after that, everybody heard about it. No, I'm joking. But everybody started going to Arizona every year, right? And they, you know, it was horrible, disgusting that they shut down the Mexican American Studies department in Tucson. But literally what happened is like Cal State, you know, university system have Area F, so ethnic studies is a requirement. High school, the high school studies, ethnic studies requirement. And so now we just got to get back up people like Ron, right, to teach. They call it real ethnics. That was one of the coolest things at the last conference. Real ethnic studies versus this multicultural ethnic studies. So we have thousands of teachers teaching ethnic studies that are not qualified, which is the other downer of this. But at the same time, we need to fight and keep on educating people. And it's exciting times, man, and we're winning. That's how I like to see it. Like, we're winning, and it's the power of Chicana culture, the power of people. And I really thrive. I always tell my students, I'm a worker. I'm a public servant. I'm here to work. And that's how, you know, we come from El Paso. Yeah, what I wanted to say, what they should ban are those beachy Texas Rangers, right? What's up with that, man? So, anyways, yeah, sorry about that, right? So, so my grandma married my grandpa. He was from Socorro, Texas, and my grandma was from East LA. She was born in 1922, and they took her back to Texas. And my grandma said, "Oh, hell no," right? So she came back to California, but she was from East LA, and I got a shout out to East LA people, because my grandma, you know, she always had that stance. It's a stance, right? Like, yeah, oh yeah, right? 1922, man. And she would bless us, and she would, when we left her house, and she would bless us. She would say, and I was like 4 years old. She'd be ready for what, Grandma? Be ready for anything. You better be ready. Damn, right? To this day, I still go by that philosophy. White people are crazy. I live in a white space, Santa Barbara City College. You know, you got to be ready, man. Anywhere, right? And so that's my message to everybody who's watching this. You know, be ready, man, because it's on and cracking. Ron, you're up next. Where's Ron at? He's a high school amazing L Unified school teacher.
Thanks, Tomas. Elias, you were going to come up too, right? Yeah, so I'm happy to be here with the Houston Libo Traficantes, because I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas. So I had to come out here to represent Diaz, because that's my hometown. I come from a family of educators. I'm a second generation educator. My parents forged the path for bilingual education in the 70s and 80s, dual language immersion programs. I have two sisters that are educators, and I'm married to an incredible teacher, educator as well. And so I always tell people that education is in my blood. And being from San Antonio, right, poets like Carmen Tafoya was my mother's mentor in college as she was coming up at Texas Lutheran University. And so having that legacy as part of my family stories, and being impacted by Carmen's poetry, being impacted by Raul Salinas. Raul Salinas was, Viva Raul. Someone who, as a young person, I met him when I was 18 years old, who really transformed my understanding of Chicanismo, of indigeneity, of what it means to learn outside of institutions. And so for me, my most powerful ethnic studies, Chicanx, Chicana studies professors were people outside of institutions, outside of colleges, and universities. Folks like my family members and folks like Raul, Carmen, Luis Reyes Rivera, a New Rican poet. So it's crazy to me to think 10 years ago, I led a group of educators to join y'all as a libro traficante. I was there. We didn't come in buses like y'all, but we came in white vans with hundreds of first edition Rudy Acuna Occupied America books. Some of them I wanted to lift off the pile, but we ended up all there in Tucson. And it was there, you said 2006 earlier. That was my first year teaching, right? So as a 22-year-old, I saw you and Curtis, Jose, Norma, other folks present here in Los Angeles, and my eyes were wide and my ears were open. And I said, if they can do it in Tucson, we could do it here in Los Angeles. And so for the past 17 years, following the legacy of so many educators, I've been teaching high school ethnic studies for 17 years in Los Angeles, South Central, Southgate, in MacArthur Park, downtown LA, where I teach now. And I lead a network-wide ethnic studies program. It's a K-12 ethnic studies program where we're implementing ethnic studies pedagogy from kindergarten to 12th grade in math, science, social studies, ELA, PE, art programs, music programs. I'm proud to say of the 3,500 students that we support across 6 schools. Last year, we were able to get over 80% of our teachers to implement ethnic studies pedagogy in their class across disciplines. So I'm real proud of those accomplishments. And I'm also really proud to be a part of the Chicano pop-up book movement that Diaz and John Avalos are founders of. So we have a little display over here of some of the pop-up books that they helped me to create in my class. And the whole concept was you can ban Chicano books, but they still pop up, right? And this pop-up book public pedagogy has been a way to make visual what we learn as young folks, the hidden histories, the stories that should be central to the learning that we engage in as people who are engaging in liberation work. And so the pop-up book movement, the Chicanx, Chicano pop-up book movement is about bringing those stories alive.
Right on. Do me a favor.
Okay.
Do me a favor. As we hear from you, can you take the pop-up to that camera?
Oh, yeah.
Because I want the people in Texas, van a poner celosos. They're going to be like, oh my goodness, we don't have that there, but one thing to see. So pop it up a bunch. Pop it up a bunch para que sepan as you tell us more.
Right on. Right on. And I'm going to pass around a little. There's little manifestos y'all can take. Also stickers from Liberated Ethnic Studies. I want to pass this one around, and it can circulate. And there's a little. We've done like 3 Chicano pop-up book manifestos. We have the original and the second and the third. We have copies of all of them here. And we decided early on that we were going to do an arts protest. That was one way we fought back. We did pop-up books because I won a book collecting contest at UC Riverside during my PhDs. I was studying rhetoric and Chicano studies. I was looking at the epistemology, the arguments that created ethnic studies, and what are the principles of ethnic studies knowledge. I was really fascinated by that. I felt that a historical consciousness was integral to ethnic studies. To put it into words, that's what happens when the young person of color, the brown person, Asian American, Native American, Black, that when the student comes into the ethnic studies classroom and learns about themselves and something sprouts, the seed sprouts and opens up their eyes, and there's a transformation that cannot be unrecognized, that cannot be denied. A mission happens, a purpose for education. And so we were diving into that. And when they destroyed the Mexican American Studies Department, 2 things happened. Oscar, myself, and Roberto Saintly, we were out here, we used to run along the beach in the mornings, and we went on a run, and we said, because Mexican American Studies would always have a summer conference. We said, man, that's going to suck. There's going to be no conference this summer. And we said, let's do one. Let's do a conference. And we did it kind of like the event today, fast and furious. I think this event came together like in 2 or 3 weeks. And you can do that. And we did the first Raza Studies Now conference at Santa Monica College. We organized it in like 2 or 3 months. We brought over 100 educators from all over LA. Some people drove down from Salinas, from all over California. Arizona students came over in vans. We also did like one of the first 10 years ago, 12 or no, it was 10. We did one of the first Zoom interviews. One of the teachers, we Zoomed them into the classroom. Those are one of the first times I heard that people did that. And they do it all the time now. But we're innovating, we were activating, and we went on to do about 8 Raza Studies Now conferences. They also went by Sochi and by 1 year Chito, Los Angeles. And that organizing also led to John Avalos, Ron Espiritu, Miguel Chavez was in Minnesota, and Gina in Libro Traficantes also in El Paso also started doing pop-up books. And we developed that allegory, a symbolism that you can ban the books, but they're still going to rise up. They're going to unfold. Or you can't destroy Chicano studies. No way. And then as we kept doing that and we kept activating, we learned about the book burnings. Roberto Saintly also brought that to our attention, that this book banning, this attack on ethnic studies is nothing new. And this hasn't been going on for 50 years. It's been going on for 500 years. And the more we studied that, we uncovered that history of book burning, the auto de fe, the Inquisitions, the act of faith. That's when the Inquisition from Spain crosses the Atlantic and arrives in Anahuac, Turtle Island, the Americas. And one of the first things they did at Tenochtitlan, they burned the library. They burned the library at Texcoco. They burned the Mayan library. That's one of the most famous burnings. Diego de Landa burns 27 Mayan codices. It was a destruction that's recorded to have a devastating effect on the people, because the people knew that their civilizational the gems of their civilization had just been destroyed. And so we realized that our movement for fighting for our books, our knowledge for our youth, these Chicano Papa books, the Libro Traficante, it was about the fight for historical consciousness. They know that historical consciousness empowers our young people, and we know that, and that's why we fought so hard. And why another beautiful allegory was the seed, and that comes out from Tucson. They said they're all about planting seeds. And so in one of the first pop-up books, we used the poem by Ernesto Cardenal, the Nicaraguan poet priest of the Sandinista Revolution. He wrote a poem for a fallen guerrilla leader, Adolfo Baz Bonet. It's called Epitaph for the Tomb of Adolfo Baz Bonet. And it ends by saying, they tried to bury you, but they didn't know that you were a seed. And so we took that and it became an icon. And it started in Tucson, and then other movements did it. Ayotzinapa, the Dreamers used it, Black Lives Matters, because it's true. It's like the Che Guevara saying, you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution. So in the spirit of that resistance, of that perseverance, we proclaim that you can ban Chicano books,
but they pop
up. You can ban Chicano books,
but they still pop
one more time. You can ban Chicano books,
but they still pop up.
Also want to recognize one of my students from SMC, Jordan, is in the house. And then Sonny Lloyd, also a professor of ethnic studies at Venice High School, is here. We got educators in the house. And Crucito drove all the way from Santa Barbara. He's got copies of the beautiful El Plan de Santa Barbara, talking about a seed. That's the manifesto written collectively in 1969. That was the blueprint for Chicano studies. It's a beautiful book. We just read it in my class 2 weeks ago, and we're so excited to be here. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Gracias. That's awesome. And I'm gonna call Maria up. Do me a favor, Ryan. Can you show that other pop-up book to the camera? Because I don't think we get a good look at it. Well, you had two. So you showed us the first one. They got a nice close look. Yes, por favorcito, if you could give a really good close-up so they could get a really.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
So this is the Aztecs. It's a project we did on rediscovering Tenochtitlan. Little gem, little masterpiece. Tenochtitlan, you can tear it down, but it still pops up.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. That is really amazing. And then I do want to point out too as well, we've got 20-year-old art in the back as well, because the movement is about all sorts of visual arts, culture. Want to give a shout out to Lydia Porto. She is an actor from Houston, our dear friend out here as well. That she found asylum. She found asylum here. And then I think Liana and Brian, if you want to come up, I know you guys are filming. They're working right now. Come on up, Brian. Brian is an environmental justice advocate. And then Liana, I know right now they work. Por favor, welcome them as well. Co-founders of Nuestra Palabra Caravan.
Hey, thank you so much, Tony. Thank you all for coming tonight, and it's beautiful just to see how this movement has spread and grown in so many ways. And I've been a teacher right out of college. I went into teaching for 2 years, and that was probably the hardest 2 years of work that I've ever done in my life. And I've done a lot of things, but I applaud and I celebrate. I'm so grateful because I had really good teachers. They were not perfect, but they cared about me. And I think that when I first saw the students in Tucson fighting to have the right to study the education that they were receiving, that said so much to me, that they had teachers and parents that cared about them. And it was the curriculum that sort of brought all that together, I think. I do environmental justice work, and I come from a line of preachers and teachers, although I didn't know that growing up. I was one of the folks who, was never handed a book by a Latino author, probably until college. In school, my mom had some books at the house. Carlos Castañeda mostly, because she was really into like the mysticism, and they were pretty fucking dope though. I really enjoy those books. And I remember one little 10-minute class where Native Americans were even talked about, and I think it was in 3rd grade. Yeah, that was it. And what a sad thing, because I remember that class. I remember that lesson, and I remember seeing the corn. Right, they brought maize to the classroom, and they had different color corn. It wasn't just the yellow corn that you saw. So I understood very quickly how much of an impression having books, having literature, having ceremony, having opportunities to learn in different ways could be. Because I wanted that, and if I could remember this little 10-minute class and it motivated me, you can only imagine what a pre-K through 12th grade curriculum can do for our gente, for our youth, right? So I came back, I taught for 2 years, and I started to see, a lot of problems with the youth that were also, issues that bothered me. You know, it wasn't just the education that they were receiving, but it was the fact that their home life was really difficult too. I grew up on the east side of Houston, and I just took a toxic tour with my buddy Mark Lopez in the back of East Side LA, and there's so many parallels. And you know, if you think about the environment around you, at least for me, I didn't think about a whole lot of things that that you might think of when you think of environmentalists, trees and lakes and animals, because I didn't have a whole lot of that around me. I had a little bayou, but mostly it was, you know, an industrial part of town, a lot of warehouses, a lot of 18-wheeler trucks, a lot of rail, a lot of petrochemicals, refineries, pipelines, etc. That was my sort of surrounding area. And it took me, you know, going to college, leaving the city and coming back to figure out, you know, how that impacted my own life, my own health, and my own ability to concentrate and appreciate, you know, being in school. I suffered from asthma. I had headaches, nosebleeds, and I was irritable, you know, as a young kid. It was hard to sit down for a couple of minutes without moving around. And I got in trouble a lot for, you know, just squirming in my chair and not being still or quiet. So I have been doing a lot of learning from elders in the movement, and sounds so similar to what the ethnic studies courses we're doing. You know, since we've done the fight, I've been to some of the workshops to learn about barrio pedagogy. I've been part of other movements that have, you know, done really, really incredible things like caravans to visit other communities, to learn about the experiences that they've been having, and the struggles and the fights that they have led and the victories that they've had. And that all has, you know, inspired me to think about those things when we see situations like what we saw in Tucson. So the Libro Traficantes, you know, grew out of an organization called Nuestra Palabra that Tony started in the 90s, in the late 90s, just about the time that I was coming back from college. And so Liana and I both volunteered, you know, around that time in the early 2000s. And it was media, and it was, you know, using radio and photography and video that gave me a way to sort of capture and tell that story, because it was not being told, right? It wasn't in school, but it wasn't in our adult life either, right? We weren't seen in the news. We weren't written about in the newspapers. All of the issues that we were experiencing as adults were also, you know, silenced. And that kept us in the same place. If we're not talking and if we're not demanding, you know, what is right, what we deserve, then we're not going to get it. We're not going to get it. And so that became the way that I got involved. And, you know, because Nuestra Palabra had a radio show, we had a platform. We were on Pacifica Network. Y'all have a radio station that's part of Pacifica Network here. I think it's KPFK. Yeah, we have one KPFT. So, you know, it started with these alternative spaces, but, you know, what we've seen is just an incredible amount of growth and attention being paid to our gente, to our relatives, to our stories, and we just got to keep adding to that. And you know, I know that there are some writers here, and I encourage you to keep writing. It's hella hard to get published. It's hella hard to do any kind of media that is, you know, not mainstream and have it seen, you know, and heard and respected by anyone. So it starts with gatherings like this, you know. It really does. Tony's first reading was at a Mexican restaurant in a party hall called Chapultepec, and it grew into a huge book festival that lasted 3 days over the course of a weekend. And tens of thousands of people showed up to learn about literature, to hear, readings from Latino authors. That's amazing. That's amazing. And that took less than 10 years to do, right? So we can continue to build and do great things. It just takes us working together. That's why we're here. And I'm just, grateful for your time. And I hope that we can continue to work together. And I'm going to hand it over to Liana Lopez, who's also beautiful compañera of mine. Thank you.
Hi, I usually am the person that's behind, so it's a little interesting sometimes I have to come up here and talk. But yeah, I'm Liana Lopez. I grew up in Houston. Actually, technically, it's Humble. It's where one of the cities where Exxon Oil actually started. So my background really has been part of literature, part of environmental justice, and really the fight started really with Nuestra Palabra and with the Libo Traficantes. It was seeing the children, it was seeing the kids, the young adults that were part of this program that wanted to fight. Like, who goes to school board meetings every Tuesday for 2 years? They knew what was important. And me as a kid, like, I was always in the accelerated classes and things like that, but my background was more in a white community. So although I realized I was Mexican, I did not realize all of the trauma and all of the hurt that came from being not only Mexican American but also indigenous. Which this is why I try not to talk too much about this, because it's a lot, Anyways, so when I came around Nuestra Palabra, which was well after high school, early 2000s. That's when I started learning about my own history. And the 100 Years of Chicano, that book changed my life. That book changed my life. It made me understand that I should not be embarrassed of my family because we didn't keep our culture. It wasn't something that they chose to do out of, they had to do it to survive. And it was something that I didn't understand. And so for a long time, because I don't speak Spanish, I'm learning now, but, so for a long time, I felt really upset, really embarrassed and really like, God, how could y'all lose your culture like that? And very dismissive and not disrespectful to their face, just in my head. And when I read that book, it set me on that path to find out about my history. And like now I just talk smack to folks. They're like, oh, you don't speak Spanish, or, oh, you need to accent your O. And I know it's not proper, but I'll tell you this. I don't accent my O because I want that oppression. I want that oppression to be shown. Don't accent my O. It shows my oppression. So I'm going to sit there. I'm going to hand this mic over to Tony. But I'm really, really glad to be here. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Liana, for being so brave with your vulnerabilities and the trauma. And I want to give a shout out to two other co-founders who are not here, Laura Acosta and Lupe Mendez. Lupe Mendez is actually now Texas Poet Laureate of the state. Yeah, which is very cool. Very cool. We're going to close with some writers. I'll end it in a little bit after our next poet. And I do want to give a long introduction to him. And I want to say one thing. My book is called Tip of the Pyramid, Cultivating Community Cultural Capital. I talk about cultural accelerators. You're cultural accelerators because you're advancing in different fields, but you stay connected to community. And that's key, because we will be lured away, enticed, even at the university level, at the governmental level. I really applaud political officials who are tempted by corporate politics, but are here in the community. And I want to tie some links in before we bring Matt up here, because here's some links. We got to have some links here. Houston, Texas, third largest city in America. Census says we're only 45% of the population. We're easily 50%. Latinos are 50% of the population. Out of 16 city council representatives, how many do you think are Latino? One. Houston has never had a Latino mayor. Okay. I have one chapter called here, we're allowed to prosper but not rule. ¿Verdad? So for city council representatives to be in the room with you, shaping policy, that's huge. Yes, you're not passing book bans here, but there's book deserts. Look at the Chicana, Chicano, Chicanese communities across the country. They are ensconced in book deserts. Part of this trip, we're visiting schools. We're actually going to be stopping in East Palo Alto. There's another Chicano who's a city council rep who's also a poet, Mike Tocayo, Antonio Lopez. He wrote a book, Gentrification. He'll be flowing in his old barrio where he represents, but right there next to Silicon Valley, one of the most affluent spots on the planet, there are book deserts. There are other tactics used to silence our community, thwart our advancement, and that's a very real thing that we are all uniting to defy. Additionally, in Houston, Texas, by the way, I'm about to give you good news, okay? I'm not just the bearer of bad news, right? One more bit of bad news. In Texas, there is one Latino bookstore. It's at the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center. It's called the Latino Bookstore. I'm happy to be the literary curator for it in San Antonio. And we host a cool reading. So I'm so happy to tell you that, of course, we have books there by Flower Song Press. In Octubre, we're going to have Flower Song Press Fest, where the publisher, Edwin Vidal from the Valley, is going to be coming to tell our gente how to get published, how to work in the industry, how to typeset, how to pitch books. I'm hoping, and I cannot wait till someone gets published because of that. On top of it, Tejanos and Californians, we're working together because Flower Song Press from El Valle, the RGV presente en Texas, compas, no me olviden ustedes, no se preocupen, publishing writers from Califas, who we're going to host in San Antonio. One of those writers, who's a badass poet, is here tonight. Dear friend, I cannot wait till he thrills Texas in person. Here he is tonight. Please welcome Matt Cedillo. Yeah.
Sundown, Levittown, Fort Apache, Dirty Harry, John Wayne, Blackface, Minuteman, Moynihan, Gone with the Wind, Breaking Bad. Washington Redskin, Confederate flag, the sword, the dollar, the cannon, the scholar, the cavalry, and the Ivy League history, as written by lightning, is the rising smoke of burning village. The ways and means of victors keep their victims, a frontier thesis, some notes on the state of Virginia, extraction, expansion, the winning of the West, Lewis and Clark, Smith and Wesson, now circle the wagon with bloodshed and slave sweat, the crack of the whip. The law 3/5, the Crown Republic of King Cotton, the intended failures of Reconstruction, the housing covenants that created great migrations, the same to the Mexicans in poor Mexico. So far from heaven and so close to Monroe Doctrine, to Davy Crockett, to prison industrial complex, a war on drugs is a war on our young. Bloody Christmas, Reefer Madness, 15 to life for 4 ounces, East Oakland, West Baltimore, south of La Brea and Oliver North, Plymouth Rock, Jamestown, the Rio Grande, stolen lives, stolen land. Some are born in summer homes and palatial groves where pain was only to ever unfold from the pages of secret gardens where red fern grows, but not I. See, I come from the stock of star-eyed astronauts who greet the night sky with big dreams and wide eyes, always running down the devil's highway through occupied America, on the way back to house on Mango Street, and all the books you want us to read. Raised on handball off the back wall of a panaderia born east the river post Mendez versus Westminster, one generation with red lines and diplomas that were signed to those dreams. And that skin need not apply. See, I come from struggle. And if my story offends you, it is only because you made the mistake of seeking your reflection in my self-portrait. See, this might be about you. Because some are born in the Common Core. Reflected faces grace the pages of doctrines discovered and age to be explored. Where old world hardships crashed against new shores, New England, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York. For others, pushed off Turtle Island. Aslan, do not call this brown-skinned immigrant. Child of the sun, son of the conquest, Mexicano blood, running through the veins east side of Los Angeles. Do not tell him if native tongue and song will best be sung. Do not tell me who I am. Because I was raised like you. Miseducated in some of those very same schools off lessons and legends of honest Indians and Christian pilgrims and a nation of immigrants all united in freedom. It is until they pulled aside, my white friend pointed directly at me and said, Scott, I judge you by the company you keep. And you spend your time with this. That's Samuel's story. It's 1846. The adventure Uncle Sam, the stick-up man, he wetback. Show me your papers, I'll give you your labor. The melting pot was never made for the hands that clean it. The American dream has always come at the expense of those who tucked it in. You don't know that. So don't teach it. Could write you a book, but you won't read it. So you know this is about you. In 1492, and the Treaty of Guadalupe and California missions and Arizona schools, these racists that try to race us as your kids in cities that bear our names. But you can learn some today, from Ferdinand to Minuteman, from Arpaio to Alamo, from Pope Horse King the Indian, that lives in me from 1843, try to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. Canadian minds, they don't strike the Bandeala, Visapata, Joaquin Murrieta, Natalitas, Brown Baresi, Zapatiste, Richard Nixon, to Napoleon, from Peckinpah to Houston, from Lone Star Republic to Christopher Columbus, all the way down to Donald Trump. We didn't cross the borders. The borders crossed us. Who you calling immigrants? Pilgrim. So how you doing? I'm Matt Cedillo. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Libre Traficantes. Thank you to the PICO Center. Thank you to everyone involved, Are, for having me out here. It's a huge honor to be a member of Are, and also a member of a lot of these lines. Some of this stuff sounds familiar. It's because I learned it from all of you. So I mean, I sit around just writing stuff. So I mean, all these things I was writing about there, obviously, always running down the Devil's Highway through occupied America, all the way back to Main Street. It's all books banned in Arizona. And, written that way, and the reason I wrote it that way was because the first two books I referenced were Where the Red Fern Grows and Secret Garden, right? So Secret Garden's about these English kids, Where the Red Fern Grows, some kids out in Kentucky or something like this. And these are like coming of age books that I read as a teenager, right? And I was like, if you're a teenager, you're gonna need to you're coming of age, and these are things you're gonna need to know, right? So read about this kid in the English moors, and you read about these kids in the Kentucky forest, because that's you, because you're 12 and they're 12. But you can't read these books, like Always Running and some English or anything like that, because that would be bad. That would make you not like us. So that was kind of like how that poem was kind of constructed. At the end, it's a poem that's charged with the knowledge of these things, with the knowledge, having been charged with the knowledge of why these conditions happen. Because we were born into this country, especially Chicanos of Mexican descent. We aren't really given the tools to understand why things are happening to us. We just know that things are happening to us. So we experience this over and over and over again, and we don't really have the tools to understand why. So we end up blaming ourselves, blaming our families, blaming the community, without actually understanding this part of the historical process in which we have been, which goes back, in some ways goes back to 1848, but some ways goes all the way back to 1492. So that's what that poem's about. And it's a part of a collection called Mowing Leaves of Grass, and the book's called Mowing Leaves of Grass because one of the major poets of this country, he's got a bridge named after him. He's even got a whole archive put up at universities, of which I'm in, because I said F them, so F all women. So that actually got me in their archive. But yeah, part of the Walt Whitman archive, the official Walt Whitman archive. But he was a really well-known poet. He was a very, very talented guy, but he was deeply racist, and he was also a journalist. He wrote in a newspaper, "What does miserable, inefficient Mexico do with the grand mission of people in the New World with a noble race?" And it's not just in his work as a journalist and as an advocate of manifest destiny. It's actually also in his poetry. He's got a poem about California, in which he says, "California, I will teach you this robust American love." And he writes this in 1852. So what is happening in 1850s in the state of California? This is a period of time that we see, the California Gold Rush. We see the Foreign Miners Tax. We see the Greaser Act. This is a period of lynch law. This is a period of brutality, of murder, the dispossession of the land, and of great bloodshed of people of Mexican descent, of people who are Mexicanos, Californios, Indios. I mean, this is just whatever they were called. This is brown people getting killed. And this is Walt Whitman, considered America's greatest poet, advocating the teaching of robust American love. And so when you do something like that, hundreds of years later, someone like me is born. And they get considered the best political poet in America. Because if you Google that, my name comes up. It doesn't have not even this top result. There's a whole panel. Google the best political poet in America. It says Manzanillo. So, not the best Chicano, not the best Latino, not the best Hispanic, not the best. I'm proud as hell. And I'm proud as hell to be Mexican. Proud as hell to be Chicano. So without further ado, here's a poem, Mowing Leaves of Grass. And then I'll do one like that. I am the Asia-ridden vengeful Vado Valdez, the best laid plans of Modesta, the reckoning of Santa Cruz, San Isidro, Bisbee, Chandler, Porvenir, the blood, sweat, and tears of all that I refuse to forget. I am that unpaid debt. No sidekick, no subplot, no mascot, no ethnic study, the universe I embody. The ground above me, the sky beneath my feet. March the skies, las reyes, the circular calendar, sleeping in Chiqueros Rivera, past the past, the future, and the present. Like catch all at once, the moment I'm you, you are me, and we are two clenched fists that still lit fire, sacred kept, found myself last fighting Aztec, laughing in the face of death, the blade of El Pachuco, guarding the temple steps, the strength and memory, the promise tomorrow. Yo soy Chicano, Chicano soy, donde lleves el Chicano voy. They want you, think it's important. Critical to your rehabilitation for the way in which you enter this world. Read Thomas Jefferson also get pregnant. Standards of praxis. Curriculum instruction, and you, the product of a public education, you are erupt, you led cuffed, face first to pavement like your father, your grandfather, your mother, your Nina, your tío, you learn your lesson. It's not personal. It's all you people. So don't get mad. Don't get hurt. Don't make this political. It's economic. Objective. The law of self-interest. We let you in will become of the canon, the classics, Alexander, Napoleon, who will shed the wit and wisdom of Ben Franklin, Shelley, Shakespeare, Chaucer, Walt Whitman, from the Palmanic starting was miserable, inefficient Mexico with the grand mission, the new world, the noble race. You fought. You lost. You don't get to define this. It's not racism. It's progress, providence, and God willing, you filthy mongrels. It is just the way it is. Look at you. I see color. I see labor. See cops and robbers, guards and convicts, institutions, corrections, schools, look at prisons, cage departments, cost of living, the cost of being brown is high as wage theft and the rent. Forget your savage tongue, which used to bust American love, spoon feed you speaks freedom of speech, still take a joke and speak to authority. I'll show you who you are in a book, and you'll believe it. So I said it, now you read it. Who you question the canon, the classics, Kerouac, Lowry, walk out in the great white brilliance of Garfield, Roosevelt, Lincoln. I listen to support the universe. As a muralist. The cosmos. Our self-portrait. Sarah Kundera, Ransante, a poet, laureate, a stylist, a mechanic, the barrio dandy cruising the rings of Saturns, the travel tips of Torres, Carrasco, tearing the curtain on Union Station, Joaquin, returning triumphant, marching the laws of Tucson, mowing down leaves of grass, forget what women's in our LeBeau dedication, Frida, Selena, Cantinflas, Luis Rodriguez, Valdez, Cervana, Sandra Anza, Lua, the mighty Quinn, to all that we are and all that we've been through lifetimes and timelines, galaxies, dimensions of pride, pain, and resistance, and Gothic are the solar showers, the days of living music when the people of the sun were dancing to the tune of Valenzuela. La Luna was a calavera as the answers to welcome the future to circular accounts. I'm you, you are me, sitting at desk, looking at the stars, searching the end of poem never began. It always was, and forever shall be. And again, I want to say thank you to everybody. This is the final poem. It's really interesting. I get interviewed. I get to go around the country, speak at different universities, and ask me interesting questions like how did you get started, who are your influences? Can you give us an example of Latino experience? To which I typically respond, when I was 6, I lost a tooth and I put it on the pillow. In the morning, ¿sabes qué? It was gone. That's my Latino experience. Here's a poem about growing up in El Sereno on the east side of LA. I was born on the east side of Los Angeles, across the tracks from bandit steel, industrial, petrified forest. Across the steps, a giant green tarp to customers and gossipers, our abuelitas. From rays of sun to bombs of birds. They spoke Spanish. Sold mangoes, papayas, and cherries, my favorite. As a child, I could never quite make the connection between the broken empty bottles across the steps and the broken empty men poured out the rust factories from across the tracks. So my cousins and I would gather and throw rocks of dirt aimed directly for the head. And the men would yell back something like, "What do you damn kids know about life?" Yell back, "Take that, drunks." That was messed up. That's how it was growing up. Where Valley climbs up and over Soto, El Sereno. In the 1950s, my mother's father, a technician by trade, by birth, a prince among men, and a backwoods king that held him back, that treated him different for the radiance of his unapologetic brown skin, raised a family of 6 on a single income. There is hard-fought genius in me, older than my mother's womb. December 18th, 1981. After months of fear and absence, my father makes his return. My aunt moves to a hospital bed. She does not want to see you. You know what you did. It'd be best for everyone if you were just to leave. My mother holds a newborn, her only begotten son. There's a pain in me, older than my father's blood. As a child, I can never make the connection between his fingers on my throat and the anguish in his chest of suffering older than my father's bones. His father's whiskey. Grandfather's short temper, long-lived legacy of time. History does not care to remember his beatings are fit for scrapbooks, and genealogy shame rarely make their way to the oral tradition of campfire. There's a burning in my heart that time cannot trace. Not for my father's, the suburbs treat me different. One day in the workforce, I told my boss, last night I met a woman. Beautiful and intelligent. Asked, where at? Boyle Heights, where's that? The side of Los Angeles. Asks, incredulous, you met an intelligent woman in East Los Angeles? I wanted to slap the cavalry from his smirk. Beat the manifest destiny out of his name badge, but needing a paycheck, I stood in the weakness of silence, the pain and anguish of generations long past alive, and sickened in my chest there was a shame attempted upon us, older than the tongues of bigots. Walked off job, marched off lot, fist up for the cause, because in a world that has told us no, that has told us different, I have chosen yes. Yes, I'm Chicano. Yes, Mexicano. Yes, indigenous, that brown skin and bleed red. Yes, unafraid and unashamed, my passion, my potential, my intelligence. Yes, the fire in my chest. Look into my eyes, could feel its strength. And yes, as a matter of fact, some of the most radiant, gifted, talented, beautiful, intelligent women I have ever met reside on the east side of Los Angeles, just across the steps from the streets where I was born. Yes, I am all of this and more. I, like you, made of stars. You, like me, so full of pain, are brimming with genius. Listen to no one would make you feel different. Thank you so much. The book is Mornings of Grass. A lot of educators teach it. I sold all out of my books, so teach it. That sells me a lot of books when you sign it.
Oh my goodness, man, you're an amazing audience. And I want to assure Professor Dale Allender from Sacramento State. So he brought us here as part of a Comprometidos grant to create curriculum. He's probably looking at this and saying, they're just having a party. That's all it really is. I want to assure folks. So Matt, I taught his poetry in my American literature course. People loved it. Students who were not Chicano loved it, right? So, ¿verdad? And then also in Texas, get ready. First Friday readings at the Latino Bookstore in San Antonio, Friday, October 7th, with the Flower Song Press crew, Flower Song Press Fest. Este vato, you like him in this dimension? Asina. Imagine when the whole crew is there in San Antonio. So looking forward to that, hermano. Additionally, and I'm going to close with a short essay from here, The Tip of the Pyramid, Cultivating Community Culture Capital. I teach the 9th Circuit District Court of Appeals court case. Anyone who takes my class will hear about the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals class. And I tell them about Sean, I tell them about his daughter, and they will learn about that. I'm going to close right now with a short essay called Mind Altering Prose. Somos librotraficantes. Protect the cultural capital, live on the dividends. Banking on your interest as my hashtag trends. How do I make my coin? I coined the phrase, somos librotraficantes. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, with my broad shoulders and broader imagination, I could have dedicated my life to busting skulls or opening minds. Lucky for you, I want to do time behind books. It's ironic because my folks told me that going to school would keep me out of trouble. Little did they know that those small doses of mind-altering prose were simply starter books. I'd grow up to get into harder and harder stuff. Worse, I became a kingpin of contraband prose. I'm just evil in nature. I suppose my parents could see this in me all along. They tried to save me. They sent me to a Catholic school, but not even the nuns or the brothers or the priest could change my evil ways no matter how much they hit me. So no, reading Nathaniel Hawthorne's Young Goodman Brown did not turn me into a young and brown man. Instead, I turned All Quiet on the Western Front into All Chilling on the West Side. I turned Macbeth into MC Beth. I couldn't stop myself. No matter how much I was punished, there was no boundary to my imagination. I was always capable of the unimaginable. I respected no limits. I had to get out of Chicago for my own good. Back when I was a kid and a punk would ask me why I was reading a book on the corner, I'd reply, "It's this or beat your ass. I'll beat you with the book." I came to Houston to check out their literary cartels and to get my papers, an MFA, which stands for Mighty Fine Aztec. I'm the first Chicano to get an MFA there. Of course, it made no sense to me that I'd be the first Chicano to become a Mighty Fine Aztec in Tejaztlan. The sense that makes is nonsense because Texas is occupied Mexico. Being from Chicago, I can smell a racket a mile away, and I wanted in on the action, so I started a gang. In 1998, I started an outfit called NP. Our alias for the outside world was Nuestra Palabra, Latino writers having their say. We were running the streets from day one. We had a crew of 200 capturing imaginations, stealing hearts, and breaking literary rules right and left. In 2002, we were out of control, going from monthly mitotes to larger and larger joints. We put on mega events, drawing 30,000 people at the Georgia Brown Convention Center, attracting celebrity authors like George Lopez and Jorge Ramos in limousines at our disposal. All the big dogs saw was money flying around. They saw capital being made in sales. That was no big deal. You can sell anything. What I saw was our cultural capital building and building. All the other players could fight for their cut of the capital. I knew we were monopolizing the real power. We were cultivating our community cultural capital right under everybody's noses, just like here. And the outside world barely understood it. That meant we could just keep cranking out more and more Mighty Fine Aztecs on our terms, our way, and we'd become cultural accelerators. But that wasn't enough. We needed more and more and more. There, under the streetlights, in the alley of the convention center, running our hands over the literary gold we were running across state lines that our people were consuming in massive doses on the streets of Houston, I knew what we looked like. And instead of being ashamed, it made me more flagrant. And someone asked me, if police roll up on us and ask us what we're doing here in the alley so late, what do we say? This time I said, we tell them, somos librotraficantes. And we became bigger and bigger and more flagrant. We took over the airwaves, broadcasting NP at 100,000 watts on 90.1 FM. We took over social media, but we're just coming of age. We were on TV and conventional media. Our addiction to cultural capital knew no bounds. Of course, there were people watching who wanted to put us in check, but they couldn't, not just yet. We didn't know there were mighty fine Aztecs in Tucson, Arizona, who were running cultural capital factories of their own on different fronts and at different scales, and they were about to be attacked. Our destinies would soon be directly linked. I've told you before about Arizona's ban of Mexican American studies, so you know how we launched the 2012 Libro Traficante Caravan to smuggle the books banned in Tucson back into Arizona. But now you need to see the larger picture. The right-wing Arizona Republicans who attacked our cultural capital were flagrant too. They accused our community cultural capital of promoting the overthrow of the government. I know language rackets. They wanted Americans to think we would try to change the world violently because at that time, it was hard to imagine us as intellectuals. What was really happening was that some Republican politicians were scared of young Chicanas and Chicanos cracking the spines of books instead of each other's spines. The far right knew how to control gang members, but not cultural accelerators. This ain't a mystery novel, so I'm gonna ruin the ending. Mexican Americans have directly experienced the power of cultural capital through two potent examples. In 2017, the Chicano community overturned the racist ban of Mexican American studies in Arizona. You did that, right? You remember doing that? And then in 2018, Chicanos and Chicanas advocated and succeeding in getting Mexican American studies endorsed statewide by the Texas State Board of Education. Ustedes saben eso también en Texas, ¿verdad? That's what's up. So now I'm on a bigger racket. There's a new game in town. We'll be dropping weekly doses of cultural capital for all our edification in Califas, aquí mismo. You guys ain't gonna let us down, right? You guys will not let us down, ¿verdad? We expect awesome shows together, spreading mind-altering prose to the entire nation. I've been to Arizona. Guess now I'm a litigator. Gonna run for office. Guess I'll be a legislator. How to make my prose? I coined a phrase. Somos libro traficantes. Thank you so much for the hospitality, for all you've done. Mucho amor y respeto. This is just the beginning. We look forward to working with all of you. And gracias, Tejas. We love you very much. We might not come home, so you better treat us right, and you better love our gente here. Gracias. Gracias. Thank you very much.